During the Dacian Wars, there exists a tale so dark, it has been whispered more as myth than fact. This is the saga of Decimus Ater, known as the Lorica Negra, a name derived from the distinctive blackened armor he donned. Decimus hailed from the windswept landscapes of Hispania. His origins were humble, his ascent to the ranks of the Roman legions fueled not by noble lineage, but by an unparalleled ferocity in battle and a chilling detachment from the humanity that binds most men's souls. His reputation was forged in the crucible of war. Decimus's presence on the battlefield was both a boon and a bane to his comrades. With a soulless gaze and a silence that bordered on the spectral, he moved through the chaos of combat like a specter, his lorica absorbing the lifeblood of his foes until the metal itself seemed to become an entity of malice. Whispers of his deeds, both heroic and horrifying, spread like wildfire, painting him as a psychopath who found solace only in the act of killing. His sword was swift, his methods brutal, and his body count unparalleled. It was said that where Decimus fought, rivers of blood would flow. Yet despite his fearsome reputation and the swaths of enemies he dispatched to the afterlife, Decimus Ater's end came not by the hand of another, but by the mysterious whims of fate itself. In the midst of a particularly fierce skirmish, the Lorica Negra simply fell. No wound adorned his body. No enemy could claim to have bested him. It was as if the gods themselves, weary of the carnage he wrought in their name, decided his time had come. The Lorica, stained forever with the blood of countless fallen, was recovered from the battlefield, a grim relic of a man whose legacy was whispered in the corners of fear. Today, it resides in the Museo Nazionale Romano, a testament to the dark legend of Decimus Ater, the Lorica Negra. Those who gaze upon it are often struck by an inexplicable chill, as if the cold hand of Decimus himself brushes against their soul, a reminder of the thin line that separates heroes from monsters in the pages of history. Welcome to Ephemeral Eyes. This is one of my stories about the Lorica Negra, a cursed armor that seems to possess a will of its own. Please like and subscribe if you want to know more. Enjoy, friends.
In this cluttered workshop, surrounded by whispers of a Rome long gone, it's just me, Livia, lost in the delicate dance of restoration. Today, it's this necklace, its ancient gems still defiantly sparkling. Holding it, I'm not just Livia from the museum. I'm her, a Roman noble, draped in elegance, basking in the sea of admiring glances. Caught up in the fantasy, I can almost feel the necklace's cool gems against my skin, the weight of opulence and history. Then reality crashes in. Livia, hey, I need a favor, Marco barges in, shattering my Roman holiday with his clumsy timing. He's got this thing about the schedule, wants to swap our coffee breaks around. It's always something trivial with him. I'm sorry, Marco, I can't. Slips out before I even weigh the consequences. It's a small thing, really, but right now, every second is a tether to my Rome, to a life where I matter. His face twists in annoyance, as if I've just denied him something monumental. Really, Livia? It's just a quick switch, he pushes, his tone edged with that familiar frustration. And there it is, that familiar rush of indignation. Why am I always cast as the obstinate one? It's not about being difficult. It's about the sanctity of my work, the respect owed to these fragments of history. But as Markus walks away, his displeasure evident, a pang of guilt washes over me. My refusal wasn't just about the interruption. It was a missed opportunity, a moment where our lives could have intertwined, even if just for a coffee break. In my heart, I know I yearn for more than just shared interests and fleeting encounters. Retreating to my corner, surrounded by the silent testimony of antiquity, I find solace in the echo of my Rome that once was. Here, among the relics, I am understood, I am valued. Yet in the quiet aftermath of our exchange, I can't help but wonder if, under different circumstances, Markus and I could have shared something more profound than a mutual appreciation for history. Perhaps, in another life or a different story, I wouldn't just be Livia the curator, but Livia Drusa, cherished and seen not just for the artifacts I safeguard, but for the heart I too cautiously protect.
I can't help but roll my eyes. If she wasn't so unexpectedly captivating, with her nerdy appeal, I'd probably just steer clear of her all day. My thoughts drift to the real excitement brewing in the museum, the arrival of the cursed Lorica. Rumors are swirling about this piece, said to have been worn by a Roman warrior whose kill count during the Gallic Wars makes even the most bloodthirsty gladiator look like a novice. 'Tis not just a piece of armor. It's a testament to raw, unbridled power, a tangible link to the kind of legendary feats that every guy, if he's honest with himself, dreams of achieving in some capacity. As I get back to my own slice of the ancient world, curating a gladius that's seen better days, my mind isn't really on the task. It's funny how these ancient tools of war are now just relics of a bygone era once decided life and death. Now here I am, handling them with gloves and placing them in glass cases. There's a certain irony in being a curator of ancient warfare, surrounded by the tools of heroes and legends, yet confined to the quiet, regulated environment of a museum.
As I navigate the museum's corridors, my mind briefly revisits the Dacian Wars, a subject where my expertise lies. The strategic maneuvers, the clashing of wills and metal, the intricate dance of warfare, these elements have always fascinated me. As I step into the grand hall of the museum, the cool, controlled environment is a stark contrast to the bustling streets of Berlin I left behind. My eyes, trained to assess and appraise, scan the meticulously arranged exhibits. The Museo Nazionale Romano, with its rich collection of ancient artifacts, is a treasure trove for someone with my expertise in ancient weaponry. Yet my demeanor remains composed, my excitement neatly tucked away beneath years of professional restraint. I've been invited here as a guest curator and researcher, a role that suits my analytical nature. My task is to delve into the history of a particular piece that has caught the museum's and now my attention, a lorica rumored to be cursed. Its dark metal speaks of a history drenched in blood, belonging to a Roman warrior whose legacy was carved through the number of souls he dispatched to the afterlife. The story of such a man, whose existence was defined by such singular focus, intrigues me, not for its emotional weight, but for the clarity of purpose, something I find admirable and, in a way, relatable. My life's work, after all, is driven by a pursuit of knowledge and understanding, not unlike his pursuit of conquest. My reflections are interrupted as I'm introduced to Livia, one of the museum's curators. Her presence, initially unassuming, quickly reveals depth. As we exchange greetings, I sense her passion for the artifacts she oversees. There's a fervor in her eyes that I recognize, a shared dedication to preserving and understanding the past. Our conversation naturally veers towards the Dacian Wars, and I find myself impressed by Livia's knowledge. It's rare to encounter someone outside of academic circles who appreciates the complexities of ancient warfare as she does. Despite my usual reserve, I find this exchange genuinely engaging. It's a pleasant divergence from the more transactional interactions I'm accustomed to in my line of work.
Trudging back to my fortress of solitude, I'm mentally prepping for an epic night of decompression. Maybe some vintage sci-fi, or a deep dive into the latest historical simulation game. The day's been a whirlwind of museum politics and artifact drama. It's like navigating a dialogue tree in a game, except I keep picking the options that lead to the most unsatisfying outcomes. The museum director's briefing was like the opening cinematic of a new campaign, filled with intrigue and shadows. And yet here I am, oddly detached, my usual enthusiasm for historical artifacts taking a backseat to my craving for some mindless downtime. Just as I'm about to mentally log off from the day's dramas, the city streets throw in an unexpected twist. My foot lands squarely in a concealed patch of dog shit. Seriously? I groan, staring down at my befouled shoe with a mix of disbelief and irritation. This was not the immersive experience I was looking for. My plans for a quiet night in, surrounded by the comforting glow of my gaming setup, dissolve as quickly as my resolve in the face of this new adversary. With my desire for home comforts thoroughly squashed underfoot, I pivot, steering my course towards the local watering hole. "Looks like it's me and the NPCs tonight," I mumble as I push through the tavern's door, leaving the scent of my misfortune outside.
As I step into the solitude of my hotel room, the events of the day dance around me like shadows at dusk. I begin to unpack, my movements automatic. My favorite pen, a cherished companion on my many scholarly journeys, slips from my grasp. It rolls with a life of its own, disappearing into a hidden crevice, as if pulled by unseen forces. "Curious," I murmur. Throughout my life, I've always felt a touch apart, as if a subtle current of unluckiness ran beneath the surface of my existence. With a sigh, I turn away from the lost pen and the fleeting shadow of superstition.
As I sink into the warm embrace of the bath, the day's weight begins to dissolve, carried away by the steam and the gentle lapping of the water. I reach for my favorite bath oil, seeking to add another layer of luxury to this already indulgent escape. But in a moment of careless grace, the bottle eludes my grasp. It crashes against the unforgiving tile, shattering, with the scent of lavender spilling out like a wasted offering to the gods. "Just my luck," I sigh, the words heavy with a familiar resignation. The serenity of my bath is shattered, much like the bottle. Reluctantly, I rise from the bath, the remnants of my daydreams swirling down the drain along with the soiled water. Wrapping a towel around myself, I decide to seek solace in the simple ritual of evening tea.
I awake from a dreamless night. I feel violated, but today is the big day, so I shrug it off and prepare my morning tea.
As the crate opens, my breath catches. It's here. The Lorica calls to me, promising untold stories. My heart races, not with fear, but with a longing to delve into its secrets, to become a part of its history.
The moment the Lorica comes into view, I feel a twist in my gut. Hangover or curse? I can't decide. "Just my luck," I grumble internally, squinting at the artifact that seems to suck the light from the room. There's an odd pull, a mix of dread and fascination, but I blame the pounding in my head. Need coffee, I think, trying to shake off the unease.
Arriving just in time for the reveal, I watch with a detached, analytical eye as the Lorica is brought into the light. Its reputation precedes it, tales of curses and dark histories that would intrigue any scholar. Yet, as I observe the artifact, a sense of disquiet takes root in my mind. It's not fear, no, that would be uncharacteristic, but an acknowledgement of an anomaly that defies logical explanation. The metal's unnatural darkness seems to absorb more than just light.
My fascination with the Lorica is all-consuming, each detail of its craftsmanship pulling me deeper into a world long past. But then, the spell is broken. A sharp, startled cry pierces the thick atmosphere. One of the aides stumbles. A gasp escapes my lips as I see a thin line of red blossoming on the aide's hand. A superficial cut inflicted by a rogue edge of the crate.
"Damn," I curse under my breath, the hangover ever so tenderly brushing against the inner walls of my head.
Fascinating, I think, not of the injury itself, but of the implications it carries. The lore of the Lorica, once an abstract concept, now weaves itself into the fabric of our experience, demanding to be acknowledged.
Trying to focus, I catch Livia's awestruck expression and Elena's calculating stare. "What's the big deal?" I question inwardly, my skepticism battling with the growing sense of unease that refuses to be ignored.
Back in my apartment, my mind wanders to the Lorica, its dark allure a beacon for my imagination. In my dream, I walk through a city aglow with the light of 1,000 torches, the stones underfoot warm from the day's sun. The air is thick with the scent of olive groves and distant seas. I am draped in the finest silks. My status as a noblewoman evident in the deference shown by those I pass. The warrior who wears the lorica is a vision of strength and enigma, his presence commanding the space around him. Our eyes meet, and the world tilts, reality giving way to a realm where time holds no sway. The world transforms, becoming a landscape of surreal beauty. Rivers of blood flow beneath our feet, rivers of life, their crimson currents mingling with petals as red as the heart of a pomegranate. The warrior's armour, the Lorica Negra, becomes a living entity. In the moment of our embrace, a profound revelation unfolds. His armour darkens, not with the blood of his enemies, but with mine, flowing freely from an open heart that he cradles gently in his hand. There is no pain, only a profound sense of completion, of sacrifice and unity.
The day at the museum starts off surprisingly well for me. The usual hum of activity feels more like a well-orchestrated symphony than the cacophony it often is. I'm in my element, lost in the nuances of ancient history, when Livia approaches me with a request for assistance with the lorica. It's not unusual for us to collaborate, but there's a clarity in her communication today that catches me off guard. It's like she's more present, her usual dreamy detachment replaced by a focused intensity that I find intriguing. As we work together, the shift in Livia's demeanor is palpable. There's an ease in our interaction, a mutual understanding that usually takes more effort to find. It's refreshing, and I find myself responding positively, drawn into the task with a renewed sense of purpose. Then, amidst the clink of tools and the soft rustle of ancient fabric, Livia's voice cuts through the focused silence with a remark that sends a chill down my spine. I wonder what it's like to have sent this many souls to the afterlife. It must be glorious, she muses, her eyes locked on the lorica with an intensity that borders on reverence. The eerie calm with which she uttered those words leaves me puzzled, questioning if I've just glimpsed a shadowy corner of Livia's soul that she usually keeps hidden.
The museum halls are silent, the usual chatter and footfall of visitors replaced by a hushed stillness that amplifies every creak and whisper of the building settling into the night. Here I am, alone with the lorica, its dark presence more compelling under the cloak of solitude. My mission is clear: to peel back the layers of myth surrounding this artifact and uncover the truths that lie beneath. As I pore over the lorica, I'm struck by its condition. Unlike other loricas unearthed from ancient battle sites, marked by the brutal testimony of combat, gashes from swords, dents from arrows, this one is different. It's almost pristine, save for minor scratches and the natural wear of time. It's an anomaly that defies the typical narrative of a warrior's armor. Remarkable, I murmur to myself, the realization dawning that the warrior who wore this might never have been struck in battle. If I were none the wiser, I'd reckon this armor hasn't seen a day of battle. Livia enters the room, her presence as unexpected as the intensity in her eyes. She approaches the lorica with an air of possessiveness that takes me aback, her words weaving around the artifact like the caress of a lover. "It's as if it was waiting for me," she says, her voice laced with an emotion I can't quite place. Her fingers brush against the metal, bare skin against the cold, dark surface, and I feel an inexplicable jolt of discomfort. Watching her, a disturbing vision flashes before me. Livia, adorned in the lorica, its dark metal a stark contrast against her skin, as if the armor was indeed crafted for her and her alone. The image is so vivid, so unsettling, that I'm momentarily frozen. After a short exchange, I decide it's time to retreat from the night's eerie turn. I should call it an evening, I announce, more to myself than to Livia, eager to escape. As the museum doors close behind me, the chill of the night feels like a reprieve from the intense, inexplicable connection that the Lorica has forged between us.
After another restless night on my way, alaking to the museum, I find myself caught in a strange limbo, the city's timeless beauty unfolding around me, yet unable to truly captivate my troubled mind. An inexplicable unease gnaws at me, urging me to steer clear of the museum. Instead of heading to work, my feet lead me almost of their own accord towards a familiar refuge, a nondescript bar nestled in a quieter part of Rome's historic center. As I sit in the dimly lit bar, the clink of glasses and the low murmur of conversation fading into the background, I attempt to drown the growing sense of dread with each sip of bitter liquor. But the alcohol, rather than numbing my senses, seems to amplify the disquiet in my soul. Visions of blood, vivid and unbidden, surge before my eyes, rivers of crimson flowing through the streets, seeping into the very foundations of the museum. With a shaky resolve, I make the call to take a sick day. Leaving the bar, the visions of blood slowly recede, leaving behind a residue of guilt and confusion. The walk home is a blur, each step taking me further away from the Lorica's dark influence, but no closer to understanding the turmoil it has awakened within me.
I stand in the quiet of the museum workshop, meticulously preparing the Lorica for its grand unveiling. The sound of footsteps breaks my concentration, and I look up to find Markus entering the room. There's a palpable tension in his posture, a shadow across his features that speaks of unrest. The Markus I know, always so enthusiastic and vibrant in his love for history, seems diminished, replaced by a figure who appears haunted, his gaze darting around as if expecting some unseen threat. Maybe he was still sick. In moments like these, my usual response would be to retreat into my own shell. But I decide to reach out, to bridge the gap that my own insecurities have so often fortified. "Markus," I begin, "you seem troubled. Is everything all right?" I ask, stepping closer, trying to catch his gaze. But Markus is barely present, his focus scattered, his eyes reflecting a turmoil I can't comprehend. "It's nothing. Just didn't sleep well, I guess," he mumbles. His words barely a whisper, his attention fixed on a point just over my shoulder, as if expecting something to materialize from the shadows. "Maybe you should get some fresh air. It might help clear your head," I suggest, in the hopes of piercing the fog that seems to envelop him. For a moment, there's a flicker of the old Markus, a hint of gratitude in his eyes for the concern shown. But it's fleeting. Without warning, he turns on his heel, muttering a hurried excuse as he makes a hasty retreat from the room.
Arriving at the museum later than intended, the day already feels off-kilter, the morning's rhythm disrupted by an unsettling tension in the air. As I make my way to the Lorica's exhibit, the sound of raised voices draws my attention. Livia, usually so composed and lost in her own world, is locked in a heated exchange with her boss. The intensity of the argument is palpable, even from a distance. Before I can decipher the cause of the disagreement, Livia storms off, her expression dark and troubled. Our eyes meet for a fleeting moment, and the look she gives me is chilling, a soulless stare that sends shivers down my spine. The encounter leaves me unsettled, the image of Livia's dark, almost black eyes haunting me. The walls of the museum, usually so reassuring with their silent witness to history, feel constricting, suffocating. Needing to clear my head, I decide to step outside for a walk, hoping the open air and the rhythm of the city will help dispel the unease that has taken hold. As I wander the streets, my thoughts circle back to Livia and the Lorica. I recall how she touched the armour, almost affectionately, as if there was a connection between them that transcended the mere physical. In a moment of impulsive curiosity, I find myself wanting to experience the Lorica firsthand, to feel its cold metal against my skin, and perhaps understand the pull it seems to have on Livia. But as this thought takes hold, a sudden commotion shatters the calm of the afternoon. A scream, the screech of tires, and then a thud. A tourist, caught off guard by a speeding vehicle, lies motionless on the street. The shock of the accident jolts me back to reality. The desire to touch the Lorica, to seek some connection with its dark past, fades as quickly as it arose, replaced by a sobering reflection on the randomness of fate and the shadows that sometimes lurk behind our most innocent curiosities.
I drag myself back to the museum, the weight of unspoken fears and unresolved thoughts heavy on my shoulders. The tasks that await me, once a source of unbridled enthusiasm, now feel like chains. I push through the day mechanically, a shell of my usual self, piecing together the display with a detachment that frightens me. The gladius and shield take their place among the exhibit, silent sentinels to a past that suddenly feels all too present. As the day draws to a close, my path inevitably crosses with the Lorica Negra. Its presence in the museum has become a dark star. Today it feels as if the Lorica is waiting for me. I stand before it, transfixed, the darkness of the metal not just a physical attribute, but a malic force that seeps into my very being. The air around me grows thick, the edges of my vision blur, and a wave of nausea washes over me with such intensity that I stagger, a hand pressed to my mouth in a futile attempt to quell the rising tide of sickness. With a desperate urgency, I flee to the restroom, the cool tiles and sterile scent a stark contrast to the oppressive darkness of the Lorica. The contents of my stomach find their way into the porcelain bowl.
Standing before the Lorica Negra, its dark form exuding an aura of ancient secrets and whispered tales, I feel a surge of anticipation. With deliberate care, I remove my velvet glove, a barrier between the clinical touch of a scholar and the raw essence of the past. My hand hovers over the metal, the air charged with expectation. In this moment, I am not just a historian or a curator, I am a seeker of truths, about to bridge the gap between the present and the echo of millennia. My skin makes contact with the cool, dark surface of the Lorica. I close my eyes, half expecting a jolt, a whisper of the past to rush up and greet me, to feel the imprint of the warrior who once wore it, the battles it had seen, the blood it had been stained with. But there is nothing, no surge of ancient energy, no flood of the warrior's memories, no connection to the countless souls it is said to have sent to the afterlife. Just the cool, inert touch of metal against my skin.
Livia is engrossed in her work when I approach. Livia, can we talk? My voice sounds more uncertain than I intend, betraying the turmoil within. Her response is immediate, her eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that sends a shiver down my spine. Markus, so you feel it too. The Lorica, it's not just an artifact. It's a revelation. This woman before me is a stranger, her aggression masked as passion, challenging my discomfort with the Lorica as if it were a personal affront. Why would you feel uneasy? The Lorica is magnificent, elevating, it's everything. Her stance is confrontational, her words a challenge I'm not prepared to meet. Overwhelmed, I retreat, muttering an excuse about needing air, but she follows. Her presence a palpable force at my back. Outside, the chaos of Rome surrounds us, but Livia seems unfazed, caught up in her own fervor. Let's play a game, Markus. A dare. But I can't, I won't. Her next act is one of pure impulsivity, a dangerous flirtation with fate as she steps backward into the bustling traffic. Her childish giggle a chilling soundtrack to the ensuing chaos. Cars swerve and almost crash, a cacophony of horns and screeching tires filling the air, but Livia is already gone, disappearing back into the museum's embrace before anyone can link her to the turmoil.
Long after the museum has closed its doors to the public, the halls, bathed in the soft glow of security lights, feel like a different world. As I navigate the familiar path towards the exhibit, intent on further study, a soft, rhythmic sound catches my ear, a melody that seems out of place in the solemnity of the museum's night. Intrigued, I follow the sound, my steps cautious, my presence a silent shadow among the artifacts that line my path. Turning a corner, I'm met with a sight that arrests my rational mind, confounding my understanding of the colleague I thought I knew. There, in the dim light, Livia dances, her movements fluid and unrestrained, a stark contrast to the reserved, introspective woman of the daytime. The scene is surreal, almost otherworldly, as if Livia has tapped into a vein of ancient energy. She moves with a grace and confidence that's both mesmerizing and unsettling. As she finally comes to a rest, the spell is broken, and I retreat into the shadows, my mind a whirl of questions and newfound wonder.
Surrendering to the call, I close my eyes and allow the floodgates to open, unleashing a torrent of visions that are both exhilarating and terrifying. The Lorica clings to my body like a second skin, its weight a comforting presence that speaks of invincibility and eternal conquest. With each foe that falls before me, a rush of euphoria courses through my veins. The Lorica, my dark guardian, fuels my frenzy. Its whispers, now loud cries of encouragement that push me to the brink of my own humanity.
Compelled by a sudden impulse to uncover what might be fueling Livia's transformation, I make my way towards the workshop where the exhibition featuring the Black Lorica is being meticulously prepared. As I step into the workshop, a chill runs down my spine. A growing sense of dread tightens in my stomach. The Lorica Negra, the artifact around which the entire exhibition is built, is conspicuously absent. Panic and confusion swirl within me as I struggle to comprehend how the Lorica could simply vanish. Yet, as I stand in the empty workshop, the haunting image of Livia dancing in the darkness plays over in my mind.
My senses are heightened, every sound and shadow a signal, leading me unerringly to my chosen quarry. Elena, with her logical mind and analytical gaze, has become the focus of a primal urge that has awakened within me. She is the sacred deer, the pure offering to the ancient spirits that once danced in the bloodied wake of the warrior who wore this armour. As I move, the weight of the Lorica feels like a second skin, its dark metal cold and yet somehow alive against my body. The idea of sending her to the afterlife, of claiming another spirit as tribute, fills me with exhilaration. The weathered gladius in my hand gives me a new name.
The museum's silence is deafening as I navigate its corridors. I'm confronted with a scene that freezes the very blood in my veins. There, among the carefully curated exhibits that tell the story of a civilization long past, lies the lifeless body of Markus. The shock of the discovery is a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs, paralyzing me with a horror that is profound in its depth. My mind races, trying to piece together the events that led to this moment, the role of the Lorica, and the transformation it wrought in Livia.
I am a rider of the crimson tides, a spectral figure adrift in a sea of blood. Ahead, the prize beckons, a beacon in the swirling darkness, drawing us ever closer with the promise of conquest and glory. The air is thick with anticipation, a palpable tension that wraps around us like a cloak, driving us forward, urging us towards the moment of destiny that awaits.
Suddenly, the power flickers and dies, plunging the museum into an oppressive darkness that seems to swallow every sound, every whisper of movement. My heart pounds in my chest, a frantic rhythm that echoes in the void. Panic sets in as I fumble through the darkness, each step tentative, seeking a way out, an escape from the suffocating blackness that now envelops me. I try one route, then another, only to find each path blocked. Driven by desperation, I find my way back to the great hall. I am panting, sweating, my mind grappling with the impossibility of what I'm seeing. Decimus. His aura is menacing, a silent hunter's presence. Yet I know it's Livia, trapped within the Lorica's dark embrace. "Livia!" I shout, desperation lacing my voice, attempting to pierce through the spectral armor. Silence greets me, her soul unreachable, as Decimus advances, relentless. Fleeing, I seek refuge, but like a silent tiger, he's always there, his presence suffocating, the gladius a whisper of impending doom. In a burst of anger, I confront him. "You've taken Marco, Livia, he who cared for you." My accusations hang heavy in the air, but they falter against the relentless advance of Decimus. Fearing his next move, I retreat once more, seeking solace in the shadows. With nowhere left to run, I face Decimus, not as a foe, but as a kindred spirit of solitude. Decimus, who shared your victories? Who knew the man beneath the armour? He hesitates, the embodiment of a warrior grappling with an unseen adversary. The gladius trembles, his advance halting, a momentary glimpse of the vulnerability hidden beneath the warrior's facade. I try again, desperation sharpening my words. Decimus, think of the solitude, the endless nights alone, a soul encased in darkness. He halts momentarily, the gladius wavering. Who stood by you, Decimus? Who saw face to face with you? He stumbles, the fierce warrior faltering, struggling to maintain composure, yet he advances, the gladius now mere inches away. In his approach, I sense a fleeting vulnerability, a crack in the facade. Livia, I whisper, I saw you, truly saw you, from the moment we met. Your passion, your knowledge, it was impossible not to be drawn to you. The gladius clatters to the ground, the sound echoing like a chain breaking. Decimus crumbles, and I move instinctively, my arms catching not the weight of a warrior, but the fragile form of Livia. In my embrace, Livia's eyes find mine, a glimmer of recognition flickering within. With a tender touch, I stroke her hair. Livia nestles closer, her breath a fragile thread binding her to this world. In my arms, Livia finds peace, her journey echoing that of Decimus on the battlefield. Her end not marked by solitude and strife, but cradled in the warmth of empathy. Her spirit set free in the compassionate clasp of humanity, far removed from the cold grasp of conquest.
If you made it to the end of this story, then don't let anything make you forget who you are. Take care. Until next time. Love to see you again, friend.